Good morning. About 8:30 here in Minnesota. Cool and kind of it drizzly rained a couple of days ago, over or below freezing last night. I don't know why I bother to tell the weather every time, but it is interesting. And I did not anticipate doing this little video, but this is the final push or the end of this glass cutting on this particular job. And sometimes people ask questions in the strangest places, or at least it seems strange to me. And so I want to clear up a couple of things. There are those, and I've said this before, I don't know why any professionals would pay any attention to what I'm doing. But then again, I watch them build lamps and do work and pick out colors because we all learn from each other. No one has all the answers. And this being art, it's an interpretation that comes from within each of us and how we're going to do something. So I'm going to clear up first. There's some questions about the cutting of the Mylar pattern. And this is the pattern that I'll go through this again. Some people maybe have not listened to my videos, and you always learn something the second or third time you hear something. And anyway, when you buy this pattern from a company called Odyssey out in Santa Fe Springs, California, they sell the patterns. And we walk over here again to the mold, and I'm real close to getting to work on this mold. And in fact, while I'm there, let me show you what I was doing. We've talked about I'm off on a tangent here. We talked about earlier about these cast lead branches, and there's one that I actually have in place, and we're looking at the lamp from the top of the lamp down here. There are 5 sections. I'll just leave the light off on that thing so you get a little bit of idea of here you can see the color variations that I use to get to this point. Lots of different things going on, and you can see where I've picked out particular colors in a particular place to go on this lamp. When I light this thing up, let's just do that. A lot of that'll all turn real dark blue, purpley looking. There you go. So this is a different light than what the client will have in the lamp. This is real intense LED. And I use this because I could get all of them on one piece. This thing would require a huge light table or a large circular table that you put this 5 sections in a big circle. I didn't have either one. I normally work off just smaller light tables. And I bought this thing, and I actually bought 2 of them. And this thing has worked out well for me for a job of this size that you need to lay out and watch what you're doing as you go. And I'm interested in how I transitioned from the lighter purpley, magenta, pinkish glass here on down into the darker pieces as we get to the bottom. And then from the lighter blues up in the top here on down into the darker blues and shifting on into purple as we get further on down. And then we picked up some background glass in different places. Here we have here, down in here. So as the flowers cascade down through the vine, there'll be little highlights of sunlight or muted light with leaves and stuff in the background. That's called confetti glass, and in some cases there's a little dark lines in there, and those are called fractured streamers. So it's fractured streamer confetti glass. Real old. I've got a little piece of it over there. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Anyway, let's go back to these. This is a cast branch, and that one was easy just to set in here and work around. And each one of these sections, and here we go again, I'm going to call that one number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1. The lamp has 5 sections. So there's 4 branches for each section, for a total of 20 branches. And I've got these branches right here. These are facing, all of these are upside down because the glass is going to fit in there. So what I was doing here yesterday, just for fun, and bear in mind, these are cast lead that have been plated with copper. And so I went over to here, and I don't have the crown yet. The crown, if the crown stays on schedule, the crown would be here around the 6th, 7th, 8th of April. It takes 90 days to get the crown made, and the crown is a brass. Well, let's go to the book over here, and we'll show you what the crown is, rather than try to explain it. There's the crown up on top of that lamp, and that's cast brass. And then the lamp and the branches, you can see those dark areas, those are the branches. Those are going to be soldered to or attached to that crown. So the ideal situation would be for the crown to be here, and then I start fitting. Well, I need to go ahead and start fitting before then. So what I'll do, I'll get down in an area here, all down in here, and start putting the lamp together down in here where I don't have the branches, because the branch, and let's see, let's go. I did this the other day, it got lost. There it is. Okay, so this branch here is going to need to be soldered to the crown. So if I go in here at this point and try to figure out exactly where that crown is going to go, I may be short of the branch or too far, or short of the crown or too far into the crown. So I actually need the crown to attach the branch. But what I was doing was seeing how this thing bent. Look here now. Let me turn this. So you can see I've bent this cast lead piece to conform to the curvature of the lamp. And what I'm anticipating here, and if you look down under there, see it's fitting tight on the lamp. And let's look at the underside. I'll just stick it right up here. The underside has a lip around the inside of it, much like lead came, and the glass is going to fit up inside there. So what that means is that this cavity here, right there, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those 8 pieces of glass are going to need to fit inside this cavity and then take that bend. Now, I have had questions, do I heat the glass and make it bend? No, and in fact, this piece right here is going to sit right along the edge. So you see it's going to be easy for the foil to be around the glass and then for it to be soldered and make that curve. But what I was trying to do was to anticipate how much trouble am I going to have if I've cut this glass. Here, let me put the camera where I can see it. If I've cut this glass exactly to fit that pattern, will it then fit inside that cavity? Because this branch set is going to need to go right down and touch the form with the glass setting up inside here. So I thought, well, the chances of all of those pieces of glass sticking to the form and then this thing coming down right on top of it and hitting it exact is probably pretty slim. So how am I going to go about that? So I thought, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go ahead and I'm going to put this camera where you can see it. I'm going to go ahead and set these pieces up together as close as I can get them to this shape, which would actually be, I'm going to come around here. Let's just grab this and take it over there. Which would actually be this pattern. So what I plan to do is set the glass on that pattern, which is exactly the same as this spot here. And I'm going to foil all the pieces except along the outside edge. Okay, and I'll foil right up to the edge. Make sure that it fits. Okay, I may tack a tiny little tack. Make sure it fits. Let's turn this upside down. Make sure it fits, let's see, where are we going, genius? Yeah. Make sure it fits this cavity there. Okay, if in fact I can get it to fit that cavity in that curvature, then I'll go ahead and run a strip of foil all the way around the outside, and then that would mean that I can go ahead then and set this branch, and it will fit right around those however many pieces, I don't remember how many it was now, 6, 7, 8 pieces of glass. It'll fit that section. Going to have to do the same thing here. Now here, that little piece of glass right there is going to have to be fit right in that little cavity right there. So there's a lot of consideration to go in the working with the branches. Now the bulk of the branches are across the top, and you can see where I've got it laid on the pattern right there. Here's another set right here. I will just grab that I hope I recognize which one that is. Well, I don't know. That doesn't look right, does it? Anyway, I'll figure that out. Oh, God. This is a puzzle. Anyway, I'll figure that out. Does that go there? Maybe it was this set. We'll try this. Heck, I don't know which set it is. Oh, there. Okay. Now, there's the branch set that fits there. Just because the branch, I bought the branch, or they had it cast for me, in this shape right here, doesn't mean it's that shape, because I'm going to be able to bend this piece here out to go that way, because it's going to have to fit onto the form that way. And they're here, like here, you can see this. See, I hope, let me do this where you can see this. See this right here? Okay, that's this branch set. Now it's obvious if you look, see these two here? Okay, that does not look like that. So what this means here is that I'll just bend that because it's lead. In fact, I'll bend it a little bit right now with one hand so you can see it. Watch this. There we go. So I've bent that out. It's going to need to conform to that shape, and it's going to have to conform to that shape to get those pieces of glass underneath it. So there's plenty of work here just fitting the branches in. So I'm going to put this where it goes, and this where that goes. So the cast branches are all set up for me there. And let's see, I've talked about the pattern, okay, and I talked about the mold. Let's come back, and now this is all that remains of this thing to get this glass in here, and you can see that cavity right there. Now that may not look like any big deal, and I can tell you right now that that's only a, well, and here's all the pieces laid out. I've marked them up, and the reason they're in this odd configuration now, if anybody that follows me real close knows that I had these laying on this mat, and people ask me what this mat is. This is just an old mat off of a printing press, a drum printing press. I forget what they call them. Press blanket. Somebody said on my Facebook page today, press blanket. Anyway, a guy that I used to know, used to be a student of mine, gave me a couple of these, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with those? Well, they're just fabulous to work on, and they're like bulletproof, so I have it sitting there. It's not a very big piece. I have it sitting there, and I work on it. So anyway, this section here is all that remains to get this done, and that's a little more than what it looks like. I think that's 150 pieces, and that's the most I've ever, the most number of pieces that I've ever done at one time, like I'm about to do. Okay, now I want to talk about the pattern here. People are interested in how I cut the pattern out, and it kind of looks like a net when I get done with it. Well, the reason it looks that way is I more or less like to retain this piece. I don't know, for posterity, whatever the reason, I don't know why, but and I'm real careful in how I cut these pieces out. And if you'll notice on the pieces close up, there are no dark, see the dark lines here? There are no dark lines there, because the dark lines, this is a mirror of this. And those dark lines are actually the distance between these pieces of glass, and those dark lines are going to be my solder lines. So every single piece of glass is going to be cut like this, wrapped with a thin strip of copper. We'll be showing that process. I'll be showing you how I do that. Okay, and so the distance between these pieces is that real narrow line. And I think that line was about 1 millimeter, if I recall right. I can't grab my millimeter measuring device because I've got this glass in front of it. Anyway, I think that's about 1 millimeter. And so what they're doing here is they're compensating for the fact that there's going to be foil wrapped around piece number 210 and 212, and that distance between there, I'm going to be soldering. So that's why that black line is there, and that's why if you were going to build this thing, and I think there might have been some, yeah, there's a little instruction book that comes with this pattern, tells you how to do this, and man, there's nobody that's going to buy this wisteria pattern and leap off into this thing as their first lamp. That would, I don't know why anybody would do that or torture themselves to that extent, because this is a long haul here. And I've worked on this, with the exception, I think, one day. I've worked on this thing since February 1st. That's a lot of glass. And I've cut a lot of glass here, but man, this thing here is in a whole nother class by itself. So anyway, back to the pattern. So I've got 3 or 4 different X-Acto knives, and I like this particular blade right here. I think this is the 16 blade, number 16, I think. I'm not positive. But what I do is I take this X-Acto knife, and I usually start out every one of these sections that I'm going to work in, and we'll call this a section. I should mention the blue dot on those signifies to me that I have the piece of pattern cut out. So if I look down here and see all the blue dots on all these pieces of pattern, it tells me that I have that piece of pattern paper cut out. The next thing that will happen is, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll talk about this first. Anyway, so I come in here and I've got some actually pretty good eyes for an old man, but I've got this Optivisor here, and I use the number 5 lens. And man, those things are somewhat expensive. Had to buy a new lens because my old lens was scratched up. I think I gave $30-something for the lens. Anyway, you got to have it. So I get down here and I'm nice and slow, and I take this X-Acto knife and I cut just inside that black line. And well, let's go down here. We can work with this piece here. So there's the piece right there, and I think that would be 183, which is right here. And let's look, watch this. We'll lay that. Trying to get my X-Acto knife out of there. Sometimes I've caught myself looking at this thing and using the camera, and every now and then I'll look these videos over when I get done, and I don't even have what I'm looking at on the screen. So anyway, that's awfully close to fitting that pattern space. Right there, right there. Okay, this is actually not a hard piece of glass to cut here. We cut that with, whoop, there it is. We could cut that with a glass cutter. But what we won't do that. We'll just stay where we're going to be able to cut it out of a sheet. Save some glass. I'm usually pretty good about saving glass, but in this case, I'm real good about it because I cannot replace this glass. I've talked about this before, but these sheets of Uroboros here, we'll do this again, 1998. So the folks that are into glasswork, man, there's no one watching this thing that does this kind of glasswork would not like to have a sheet of that. This is some good stuff. And so anyway, I'm using a lot of this and in sections of this because there's this actually gets kind of purpley in the light. Okay, so what I did yesterday, it took I don't know, it must have been 4 or 5 hours to mark up all these pieces. And this is about the most I've ever done at one time before was 120, and this is 150. Well, you say, well, that's only 30 pieces more. Man, that 30 pieces constitutes quite a number of extra hours. But I didn't want to divide this into, 75, 80 pieces and another 75 or 80. I just wanted to go ahead and get this whole thing finished up. Look at this crazy little thing. That's so hard to work with. And people ask me about my hands. My hands are doing really good. I've worn the skin through there a little bit, and then worn the skin through right there a little bit. But other than that, and for my age, at 74, no arthritis or any of that kind of stuff. My hands work just like they did 35, 40 years ago. So, man, am I fortunate that I'm not sitting out here with a lot of the maladies that come with people my age. I mean, I may have some stuff going on inside of me I don't know about, but other than that, standing here, I don't get tired. My back doesn't get tired, neck doesn't get tired, all that kind of stuff. So I think maybe it's just all these years of doing this, and then, as I've said numerous times, you got to like what you're doing. So anyway, let's look at what the next phase is here. So we've got these all cut out, and you might find this interesting. I got the ring saw completely rebuilt, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I put this thing, I've got new water in it, I got all new wheels and all that ready to go, and I thought, you know what, I don't remember taking the drive belt over the idler. Here we go. Did I do it or not? Oh, I can't believe it. There's the drive belt over the idler, and I woke up like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning with this thing in my head, and I thought, oh, because you take this drive belt off this idler here to replace the ring. In fact, you can see the ring pretty good there. And I replaced this wheel, that wheel, and both of these wheels. And that's the guide right there to keep the ring from moving around this way. And this is also a guide down underneath to keep the ring from moving around back and forth. This is a really good saw. I've mentioned this before. Man, Taurus, whoever, Gemini is the company that makes this, as I recall, I think. Gemini? Yeah, Gemini. Gemini ought to be getting a hold of me, and I've got a brand new saw still in the box. Because I bought another saw when I started up this job, because I thought, well, I'm not going to get in the middle of this job and then the saw go out, and then I've got to wait 4 or 5 days to get another saw, or the motor burn up or something. Now, I can rebuild all these parts because I bought a lot of extra parts for this thing, but the motor I don't have. And these saws, they're $500. In some cases, if you're buying them from the wrong place, they're more than that. But anyway, around 500-ish. So that's serious money. But on a job like this, man, I don't even want to think about doing this without it. And the Tiffany girls back in 1906 built that thing right there with no electric grinders. There you go. No grinders and no saw. So my hat's off, because those were super women before anybody knew what super women were. Man, can you imagine doing that thing with no grinders and no saws? That's just insane. However, in defense of me, my saws and grinders, they had to have 4 or 5, 6 people working on that thing. And to do this job by yourself, it's a stretch, let me tell you. So anyway, let's go back to where we're at. So we have here. There's a little red dot there, and I think there was one more there. Again, I've covered over it with blue because I've got the piece cut out. But those 4 pieces are going to be magenta. And I've got, let me show you, this 65 here. And let me turn where you can see it. 65 and 169. Okay, well, let's find them. They're going to be up here at the top. Okay, there's 169. Okay, look on this piece of magenta glass, and I hope I can get this where you can see it. See that dark scribed line down there? Okay, let's get the pattern. Let me get it loose here. Well, there we go. Okay, I hope you can see that, but I've got that pattern piece right on the money, and I have now you can see it good. I have it etched there real tight to that pattern. So what's going to happen, and I've done 5 of those, and I wanted this particular color, and let's go over here, and we're going to turn okay, and there's what I was trying to get. And if you notice, I'm down in this purple area here on this glass. I didn't get over into the white, and I didn't get over in the white over here. And I'm right there. Let's put that back down again. And there it is. I wanted that piece of glass right there. And there's one of them, 2, 3. And then there's number 4 and number 5. Okay, and then the other thing we had, what was the other one? 65. There it is. Let's see if is that right? Oh, you can get so lost in this crazy stuff. Here, 170. When's 170 one of them? Yeah, 170 is one. Okay, here we go. It's 170. So there's 170 right there, and it's going to lay. And you can see what I've done to conserve this glass is I've got, and you got to get room for your ring saw blade to come in here. So what will happen is the ring saw blade will come through here, and then I'll come around this as close as I can get to that scribed line with the ring saw. And you can see again how methodical and accurate that I am with the scribe. Now, that takes a long time because I'm going to tell you this again. Let's go here and here. I marked this thing out. I wish I could do this with one hand. I've got a camera set up by the time I fool with all of that. Anyway, I go around this thing and I get right, and of course I'd be holding it with my left hand, but I get real tight around that piece with that black line. And then I move that away. And here is, and we've talked about this before, there is my diamond scribe. And I'll scribe down here, so let me see, so you can see. Okay, now that looked pretty easy, and it's not too hard to do. You've certainly got to have a little strength in your hands. Look at that. Okay, there's that scribed line. Okay, now this Sharpie is one of these permanent ink Sharpies. And now that'll hold up in the ring saw. The water won't wash away that scribed line. Well, what you get out of that is when you come over here and you have this piece cut out as close as you can get to that line without touching that line. You don't want to touch that line because you don't want to screw up the shape of this piece of glass. Then you come over here, and I've talked about this before, but we'll do it again. You come over here and you grind that thing back to that scribed line. That's why it's so important that this line be scribed and that this line be indelible, that it doesn't wash away, because there's a bunch of water flying around inside of this thing to keep that blade cool, or the ring cool. And then there's also water here. This is in a water bath underneath here with a sponge, and I squirt water there I'll show you how to do that. Here's my squirting bottle, and I just squirt water on that thing, about every two. Look, I fired that thing up. Here again. There I am right there squirting water, and I've got water on that bit right there. So that's how it's done. The big hub, the little hub. Okay, now when that piece is cut, I usually have, right here I have a piece of, I like these shop rags because they're real absorbent. Okay, so sometimes I'll take 2 or 3 sections, or 2 or 3 sets of 5 over to here. I put a set here, a set here, and a set here. If they're not going to need to go to this saw for real tight cutting, then I'll do 5 on this saw, set that 5 done right here, set the 5 right here when I've completed them, go over, do the other 5, set that 5 here, come over and do the 3rd set of 5 and put that 5 here. Then I come in with here you go, with another shop rag, and I dry those off just like this. Dry them off. Then, for instance, if we were going to set 154, and I usually like to start up at the top and come down, because if you start trying to set these pieces in here, as you try to set other pieces in, you're hitting these pieces and knocking them out of the place they are. And then you just get a conglomeration of all these pieces whopping around here, and you can't figure out what went where. So I start up at the top, and in fact, when I get ready to do this job, I'll probably start right here with 153, 154, 155, and start there, because that's going to be an easy place for me to hit. So I'll come up here and drop in the piece here, another piece there, and another piece there. And I like to come from right to left, so put this piece in, and then this piece will naturally just go right in there and push up to there, and then this one drops in. And there's a method to this, because if you put, let's see, like this one in and that one, then you got to try to jockey this thing in to keep from knocking these two out. So you just start here, here, and here. Then I'll come over here and add this one. So you're kind of thinking ahead here. Come in here, put that one in. Okay, when you get that one in, come over here, and down here, and then put that one in. Then you can play this one in there. So you're trying to think ahead here a little bit. Not any big deal in the order in which they go down. It just makes it easier, and you don't want to get lost, and you don't want to get confused about what went where. Because if you start to look at these pieces, this one looks an awful lot like that one. And that one's not too far off this one. This one here looks like that one. These two look identical. So, you know, you can really get lost if you're not paying attention. Now, one more thing for people that are building these things that are novices or anybody else for that matter. When the piece goes down, in other words, if we're going to put 155 in, 154 and 153, as soon as 155 goes in and 154 goes in, I come back over here and I color it completely blue. 155, 154, 153. So as soon as the piece ends up here, I come back over here and color it completely blue. Now I know that though, and I can look down here and know where I am all the time because I know that I have those done. And I look around and I don't get lost because I know what's been done and what is yet to be done. So what else can I say? Oh, yeah, I want to show you. Let me put 170. These aren't necessarily in any particular order here. I'll dig those out. And in fact, that's the way they'll be ground. Now, not necessarily cut, but they'll be ground in the order in which I'm going to lay them down on here. Now, how do we cut them? All right, or is there an order to that? And the question or answer to that question is no. And here's how this is done. At least how I'm doing it. On this sheet right here, there are 10 pieces that have been cut, which represent only 2 pieces. And you saw, I think it was 169 and 170. You saw how I have laid those out on that piece. So these are all laid up here ready to cut. Now, I'm not sure you can see this. Probably not. I can't even hardly see it. There's a piece there. I'm taking advantage of this glass that I don't have any more of. And no one else, well, I shouldn't say no one else does. It hasn't been made in 30 years. But there's a piece on there. And then turn around. Up there. Now, you might be able to see that. Yeah, you can see that one. Okay. There's a piece right there. And there are several pieces on there. If I turn this right, you can just barely see it. There are several pieces there. And look, I'm taking advantage of some small pieces of glass, but these are irreplaceable. So when those are done, there are no more. I've got a couple of sheets, but that's it. You know, somebody may want another wisteria. Oh, man, I'd have to think about that. All right, anyway, I wouldn't do another wisteria till the fall. And it'd take me a while to recover from this thing. Anyway, there's a little more. So those are a little more difficult to see, and I'll start those early while I'm, you know, full of horsepower. All right, now these are easier to see. Here's some glass right here that's been marked up, and I like to do them 5 somewhere real close together so I don't get lost. And now this is a section or a piece of glass that's lighter with a little green tint, which is what I'm using in some of the areas over there. And let's say where. Okay, there's one there, and actually there's one there and there. Here's one here. There's one there. So I'm using those in different places to kind of lighten the color up a little bit, move back and forth. There's more of it up here, lighter up here, darker to the bottom. So there's a sheet, but this is I wouldn't call it a scrap. But anyway, there's a piece of that glass left over from a previous cut, and I've got it ready to go. And look at this thing. Now you're going to do some cutting here now. Here's one here. And again, I'm trying to lay the 5 that I'm looking for in relatively close proximity to each other. And I'm basing where they're being marked on this sheet based on the lightness, darkness of this particular piece of glass. So down here, if I'm looking for a darker color to go into a particular spot on the lamp, I'm using, and there's 5 right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, look here. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that one there looks like that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's going to be another one of those somewhere here. I don't know where it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll find it. I don't see it. It could actually be over on another sheet. Sometimes I get into a spot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there. No, that's not right. That's not the right one there. I don't know. I better take note of that. Anyway, it's here somewhere. So anyway, I'm looking over on this other sheet, see if it's over there. I'll find it. So anyway, when I cut these out, in other words, if I was over on the ring saw and I was cutting these out, I lay these down as they come off the ring saw into a pile of 5. And if I'm unsure, like all 5, these are all set up right here. There's 5 of those and 5 of these, so that'll be easy. Here, where you just saw where I was a little bit lost with that oddball piece right there. I'm still looking for it. I hope that's not if I made a mistake and only have 4, I'll dig it out. I'll find it. Because when I when I cut this one, this one, this one, and this one, I'll lay them in a pile. And then when I get ready to move that pile they're moving them 5 at a time, over to here to lay next to the pattern, I'll note right there that I've got to cut another one. And I'm going to definitely pay it. Actually, this is going to move over pretty quick because I'm going to pay attention to where that missing piece is. I'm glad you've been here with me to discover that little error, if there is an error. And here's a larger piece here with all kinds of cutting on it. All right, and then there's a background. Another old piece of glass, 1997. And here's some background glass that I'm looking for. And I'm moving around on this sheet based on where I want this glass, what I want it to look like. And so you can see that I was trying to get some green, maybe a little bit of a line through that one. There's some green on that one, more green on that one, green and a line on that one. So the bottom line here, I'm still looking for that piece. Here we go. And this is a sheet right here. Across the top of this sheet, I liked the transition of color across there. And so I've got, you can see here, there's 5, another 5, another 5, 5 across here, 5 there, 5 there. So the ring saw is allowing me to pick out exactly what piece of glass I want to go exactly into what space or place. And that's the whole deal here, is I've picked out every single piece of this glass, all 1,945, less this 150. In fact, I picked them out. So I picked out all 1,945 to go into a particular place. So I don't know. I always think about the skill required to do this, and I'm not so sure there's all that much skill here. I think the skill here is just not giving up. Because, pardon me, I think that you could take somebody who had a little bit of craftiness in them and teach them how to use this ring saw and then cut these pieces down to get real close to that edge. I don't know. I'm assuming this stuff is actually harder than it looks. You know, if you've been doing, I think it's like some guitar player like Eric Clapton or something. I doubt Eric Clapton's having any trouble playing the guitar. If you ask Eric Clapton how difficult is a guitar to play, he doesn't probably remember the first year or two of banging around on it trying to get it to sound good. And I think maybe I'm the same way after this many years, is I actually do recall a lot of struggles in the first 2 or 3 years. But I think this people talk about talent or gift. I think and I've said this before in videos, that the talent and/or / gift is the fact that you get into something and you just won't give up. And I will say this, there's a pretty steep learning curve in some parts of this glasswork. And people ask me, is stained glass work hard to do? And my answer is always the same. I don't think it's that really difficult to do, but it's very difficult to do it well. And there is the key. And the way you do anything well is you just keep doing it and you don't stop. And I've been fortunate enough to live to be an old man. So if you've been doing something for a long, long time and you've really put your heart and soul into the effort and you've always pushed yourself to do better and better and better and better and to learn more and more and more, then it's inevitable that you're going to be reasonably good at, something after a period of time. But, you can sure keep your head on straight, at least I do, about your skills and abilities, because a tour through Facebook real quick will humble about anybody, with a few exceptions. And I see artwork on Facebook by other glass artists that just amaze me. I could sit here and start dropping names of people that are just unbelievable. And I won't live long enough to approach the skills and abilities that they have. But then again, I've, you know, stayed with it long enough to be reasonably good at it. And I've said this before, and I'm really serious about this. I consider myself kind of an advanced apprentice. I'm certainly no master of this craft, not even close. So I'm trying, and this is how you get there. You take on a project for those that are in the initial stages or 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years into this. You take on projects that push you, that make you slow down and make you work hard and that you learn from. This is a project like this, and this thing's going to, be a job all the way. Just to get it onto the form with these branches and stuff is going to be a chore. And then to get it soldered, and then to get it off the form and get it soldered on the inside and get it braced and all the other things that go on with this lamp. It's going to be a challenge all the way. And that's what you want if you're interested in expanding your skill package. And that's certainly what I'm interested in. Well, anyway, I didn't even anticipate doing this video today, but I wanted to clear up some questions, and we've gone over how this is done, or at least the way I'm doing it, over and over. And let's turn that light off here and look at the color selection there. Man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of work that's gone into just getting those things to look that way. Those beautiful color transition. Okay, well, that's all I have, and I won't be back until I get this all done, and maybe I'll start trying to fit some stuff onto the form, and I'll show you how that goes. Because I've talked, ad nauseum about how this is done, so everybody that's interested in it can certainly pick up information from this video of at least how I do it. Well, thank you again, and always, if you have questions, be sure and ask me. Thank you.